Thought Bubble Audio.
Look, up in the sky!
You will never find the more wretched hive of scum and villainy.
Welcome to Beer with Geeks with Tim and Frank.
Who are you?
I'm Batman.
I am Iron Man.
Your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
Hi, Christopher. I'm Nero.
My name is Inigo Montoya.
You're a wizard, Harry.
A couple of guys with a couple of beers and a whole lot of pop culture nostalgia.
Make it so, number one.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Beatles.
I named the dog Indiana.
Life finds a way.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Now sit back and crack open a cold one, because it's time for Beer with Geeks.
It comes in paints?
Shaken, not stirred.
Great Scott!
I was way off. I knew it started with an S, though.
Hi, and welcome to BeerWithGeeks.com, where we blog and stuff because it's 1997?
Yes,
What?
I'm FrankRamblings.com.
Yes. What just happened?
I don't know, but we're keeping it.
What?
Beep boop.
Wow.
I am a 90s bot.
Wow. That's crazy. I wish I did this on the 90s episode.
I know. Last week. Oh, man. Well, this is my friend Tim at ThoughtBubbleAudio.com, and I'm Frank at ThoughtBubbleAudio.com. How are you?
And we're recording the first ever podcast for the internet.
We've invented it for the World Wide Web.
Wow. Frank, do you think the World Wide Web will be around in 10 years, or is this just a fad? And we'll all go back to books one day.
Oh, I think we're all going to be on the World Wide Web for a long, long time. And we'll be looking at forums, and we'll be talking about, I mean, who knows? They may even make new Star Wars movies for us to talk about.
Wow, that would be crazy.
George Lucas has always said he wanted to go back and make episode 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, wow, that's crazy.
Wow.
Now, Frank, I know that beer really isn't a thing that, like, artisans make or drink. So, we really only have about 7 choices here in 1995. So, what beer are you? What beer are you drinking? Is it Bud or Coors?
It's the champagne of beers. It's Miller High Life.
Oh.
No, I'm drinking a beer that hasn't been invented yet. I am drinking True North Cerveza Mexican Lager.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. I mean, it's like a nice Corona. It's a Cerveza. It's a Mexican lager.
Mm-hmm.
And True North is another little local Massachusetts brewery. Last week I was enjoying an Ipswich ale. This week it's True North, and I like that they make a really solid cerveza, solid Mexican lager. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Good for you.
It's
good
crisp,
for you.
refreshing. Put a lime in it. It's outstanding.
You drink it all up. That's excellent. Frank, I am truthfully not drinking anything. So here we are. We find ourselves in an impasse.
It's okay.
I don't know.
I'll have enough for the
to do
both
about
of
it.
us.
Thank you. Please do. Please do. But that's it. I guess you could count this sip of water. Clink.
Well, look,
Yeah.
we've been working on this retrospects series specifically on Star Wars, right? Because The Rise of Skywalker is coming. A couple weeks ago, we talked about
What?
Yeah, you gotta get ready.
I heard that George Lucas was making a movie called The Phantom Menace.
Yes,
Anyway.
after hot on the success of the re-release of the special editions. Yeah, the Maclunkey. We we're getting ready for the Rise of Skywalker. We talked about the influences that we think the prequels might have on the Rise of Skywalker, because Anthony Daniels said in an interview, like, you need to watch all 8 films to prep for Episode 9. So we're kind of walking our way through, and we did the prequels. Now we want to do the OT, the original trilogy. So what are some things we think might pop up in The Rise of Skywalker based on what we've seen from promotional images and trailers and everything that's been publicly released? We're not going to go into like spoilers that are like rumored stuff, but we will talk things that were revealed in trailers and other publicity material. So if you're trying to stay away from that stuff, just fair warning. I guess you could call it a spoiler warning if that's what you consider a spoiler. That's up to you. But original trilogy things. I mean, right off the bat, I can think of like we see like the Vader helmet is probably going to play a big role. Right? We see that getting destroyed. Did you see, by the way, the Star Wars show, like on the Star Wars YouTube channel, confirmed that that's the Vader helmet? Like we knew it, like we could tell, but they confirmed it there.
I also honestly, I think that is like I think it's a little bit of a dream sequence-ish type thing. I think that maybe Kylo has his dream sequence where Rey is a dark Jedi and she has her little dream sequence in which they destroy Vader's helmet together or something. Because there's this moment where like Kylo Ren does like a fist like bump thing in the air.
Oh, okay.
Where he does like a fist pump.
Like
and
fist
I'm
bump
like,
in the air?
Yeah, he like they hit it together and then he goes, yeah. Like
so
kind of thing. And I'm like, that doesn't feel like it would be a thing integral to the story.
Yeah,
if this is like her imagination. That doesn't feel like a motion Kylo would do.
Right. So it feels like something that maybe she is dreaming up. Like,
right.
Wouldn't it be great if we were on the same side and
right.
All that
something like that.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's somebody else in the Kylo Ren suit. It's just like Finn dressed as Kylo Ren. That's something Finn would do.
The fist pump, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's something he would do. He has done it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
yeah.
But anyway, original trilogy things. OT things. I think that we're going to see Yoda pop up again. You know, we saw him in Last Jedi. So. It wouldn't. We've talked about like other Jedi kind of popping up. It wouldn't shock me. It wouldn't shock me to see Yoda pop up. Obi-Wan Kenobi, but not Alec Guinness Obi-Wan Kenobi, Ewan McGregor Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah, especially now that he's back on board to do a series.
Right.
Of course, that would mess with sort of the, I don't know what you'd call it, but sort of the theory of how Force ghosts work as far as we know it, right? Is typically that you appear as a Force ghost, however you either how you last appeared or like how you last appeared when you were, you know, one with the Force or whatever.
I think that they would make up him to look like Alec Guinness.
To look like Alec Guinness. Interesting.
Yeah.
What if they just like? What if they did pulled a Tarkin on him and like they used him as an actor and basically projected Alec Guinness's face onto him?
They could do that, or they could use unused footage of Alec Guinness, which is something that we've obviously seen before.
That's true,
and we'll see a lot with Leia in
Rise
of Skywalker. I wonder if, now see, you said what we know about Force ghosts in the last period, but that's not strictly true because Anakin died a man in his 60s and showed up as Hayden Christensen.
Yes, but the reason that I think Lucas has even said for that is that he became Anakin.
The last good version of himself.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
I understand that, but technically by him throwing the Emperor over the side in Jedi, he became good again. That was kind of the whole point. And so
I agree. I actually am against putting Hayden Christensen back in that film, not because I have a problem with the prequels, as we've talked about, but to me, he became Sebastian Shaw again at the end. Like, he became Anakin again at the end, so that's the face we should see. Like, to follow that logic of like the last good version of yourself, to your point,
yes,
should have stayed Sebastian Shaw without all the scars and everything. Like, should have stayed that way at the end, the way it was originally shot. That's what I would, if I were gonna do my ultimate edit of Return of the Jedi, I would take out the Jabba's palace song sequence, Jedi Rocks, and I would put Sebastian Shaw back at the end.
That's it. Those are the only two things you would change.
I might shorten up the I'd put Yub Nub back, and I might shorten up all the celebration across the galaxy stuff because that kind of goes on for a little too long for my taste.
Wow, no, it's hilarious. I wouldn't do any of that.
Really? You leave Jedi Rocks in?
Yeah, it's fine.
It's boring.
First version of Jedi I saw was had Jedi Rocks in it.
So boring though. Even by comparison, it's actually a fun song, and like the Rebel Force Radio guys use it as their opener. But but it's a boring sequence in the movie. It doesn't belong there. Has no place in it for me.
That bit I agree. I'll agree with that bit, but it doesn't really bother me. Honestly.
Okay.
And I actually like the celebration across the galaxy.
I do too. I just feel like it's a little.
It's like a look at all the. It's basically a look at all the planets we've seen across Star Wars, but I kind of like that. This was in a world where like the prequel trilogy didn't really like super connect to the original trilogy stylistically and visually, so it's almost like it feels like a nice reminder. And I think that, honestly, I think that Anakin as Hayden Christensen showing up at the end of Jedi is also a nice reminder of that.
It is, but it just breaks the metaphor for me a little bit.
It does, but if Anakin shows up, if Hayden Christensen shows up in Rise of Skywalker, there's a continued continuity through line there, too, because if he shows up as a Force Ghost looking like Hayden Christensen in Jedi, would stand to reason that he's not going to show up looking like Sebastian Shaw.
That's true. That would sort of justify it, and then I'd be like, all right, we can keep that in Jedi.
Yeah. So that's kind of what that's kind of what I'm banking on there. We know Lando's going to show up. Do you think that Lando is just part of the Resistance now, or is he is Lando just part of the Resistance, or is are they going to him specifically? Is he on like that ice asteroid thingy or something?
Oh, interesting. I don't get this. Well, they haven't shown us much, right? We talked about this last time. We really don't know much of the plot at all.
No.
But my feeling is that he's going to come out of the woodwork as part of the call that Leia puts out at the end of The Last Jedi, asking for like anybody who can come to our aid. I feel like he's going to come out of the woodwork and like, he's been off, being like the head of a pimp planet or something. And he's like, all right, I'll come back.
Well, I was going to say, I read Resistance Reborn, the latest Star Wars book, and it takes place right after Jedi. Lando's not in it.
Mm-hmm.
So
right after Jedi.
Right after Last Jedi. Sorry. It takes place right after Last Jedi. And it's basically Leia being like, okay, go find some people. See ya.
Lando's not in it.
Lando's not in it. So
okay.
I think so I think we're going to be like reintroduced to Lando in the movie.
I like that.
Because original trilogy things, Wedge Antilles is in Resistance Reborn.
Okay.
Confirmed for the movie.
He's in the movie too.
Yeah.
He's in the movie, yeah.
And so that book is he's one of the main players. It's like he and his wife, Nora Wexley, who is Snap Wexley's mother.
Mom.
So Wedge Antilles is Snap's stepdad.
Oh, that's cool. Because Snap's parents were in the comics.
Yes, that's right.
Most recently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so those first books, like that's
the Greg Grunberg character for anyone who's not familiar.
Yes, right. And the those three books that take place immediately after Return of the Jedi, like the Fall of the Empire, it culminates in like the Battle of Jakku and all of that stuff. His parents are like the main players of that.
Yes.
Of those books, but like what happens to them, like it's like a whole big thing. I don't want to spoil it if you want to read that, but like what happens to them and their relationship, it's pretty involved and pretty sad and dark and amazing. So, anyway, so Wedge Antilles is his stepdad.
Right on. That's cool.
Which to me, an aged Wedge Antilles looks like Sam Waterston. I don't know why. I just imagine Sam Waterston.
That's a pretty good. That would work actually. I'd believe that.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that. I'm excited that Wedge is coming back. Apparently they wanted to put him in The Force Awakens.
Oh, really? Oh.
And he just wasn't interested because he didn't want to do, the actor Dennis Lawson didn't want to just sit and do another like cockpit shot. Like that's been the majority of his role in Star Wars, right? Is like, I'm flying in an X-Wing, here I am sitting in the cockpit. He was like, if they're going to bring me back just to do that again, I'm kind of good. Like I don't really, that's not exciting to me anymore.
Sure.
But I guess some folks from the convention circuit were talking to some folks from the film part of Lucasfilm.
Oh.
And like heard that he'd be interested as long as his role was bigger. So like the two sides of Lucasfilm connected, and they were like, hey, word on the street is he'll do the movie if you give him something more to do than just sit in a cockpit. So presumably he's going to have more to do than just sit in a cockpit in this film.
That's awesome. I really like that because the Resistance Reborn is really about taking like the old leaders of the rebellion and kind of retooling them so that they're older. So like Wedge Antilles is like not just a pilot, he's like a leader. Even though he himself says like, I'm really just a pilot, I'm not a leader. He like steps into this role because he has to. So even there's like conflict in his character, which is cool.
Nice. That's cool.
Yeah,
that totally makes sense with the title, right? Right.
Right.
But yeah, that's I love that. I love seeing that. Like, I feel like that's kind of what I was hoping to see more of at some point in this trilogy. And I guess it's happening sort of off screen, but as long as we get to see the fruits of it in this film, I'll be happy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that if Resistance Reborn is something to go off of, because I assume those characters will be in the film, that's kind of what they were doing there, because they don't resolve, like it's not like they all die, or anything like that. So you'll see General Daldana again.
Oh, nice.
And like things like that, that's pretty cool. And they're all elderly, but
right.
Leia's like, that's who we have, and now we got to get new people.
That's really interesting. Yeah, I hope that this story is really good about a final passing of the torch. I feel like that's something that they've been trying to do this entire trilogy, certainly in episode 7, is sort of passing the torch from the old generation to the new. And I hope they can kind of tie that all up in a bow here.
Yeah. It's 3 movies of torch passing, which is good, but it also doesn't allow your main players of 7, 8, and 9 to kind of stand on their own, because
right.
they're always in this like learning process.
Right. This is going to be the first time that our new main players are on an adventure together.
That's true. Although I was thinking about this, if you watch Return of the Jedi, I mean, if you watch the original trilogy, your main players are almost never on an adventure together.
It's true.
They're on an adventure in A New Hope together with the Death Star, and that's like the sequence. They're all together, just the Death Star. And then they're not together at all, really, except at the very beginning of Empire Strikes Back, and by the end, Han's in Carbonite, and Luke's battling Darth Vader, and Leia's trying to escape Cloud City with Lando. They're really not together on screen until Endor, but then Luke goes off again.
Right.
And so the only time they really are all together is the Death Star.
Well, and that's something that I think we're...
Oh, I guess technically Jabba's palace, they're all together.
Jabba's palace, yeah, but again, Han's in Carbonite there, but yes, you're right, they're together once he's out of Carbonite and everything. But maybe that's another thing that's sort of being mirrored here, right? Is that sort of making you hungry for keeping this gang together, getting the gang back together, and really they haven't been together until the end of The Last Jedi. That's when Rey and Poe meet, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like they're going to be, from what we've seen, they're going to be together for some part of this film.
Yeah, which is good, because
they're
apart
again, and then hopefully together again at the end.
Right? Because they're the trifecta. So like of the new film, so we want that mirrored relationship between Luke, Han, and Leia to reflect in Rey, Poe, and Finn.
Yep, exactly.
So, yeah,
it's
so
still
hopefully.
It's still one of my biggest regrets, I guess, that we didn't get Luke, Han, and Leia together again in this trilogy, like in the same place at the same time for even a scene. I think everybody really wanted to see them together in the cockpit of the Millennium Falcon just once.
Honestly,
it makes me sad that we didn't get it.
I think we will in Rise of Skywalker.
Ooh.
I think that they could. I think that they convince Harrison Ford to come back to do a scene with Mark Hamill and with a like CG Carrie Fisher or something like that in some way. Just even if it's a flashback, if it's like a the history of Kylo Ren's kind of scene or something like that, I think we will see older them all together. But you're right. I think that's a huge misstep from just like a nostalgia purpose. Like, you're not gonna see the 3 people together on screen together. Like, why would you even think that it's not something anybody like wanted to see?
It's the first thing that I think I visualized when they said that those 3 were coming back to be part of a new trilogy in some way. The first thing the first visual that came to my mind was the 3 of them in present day in the Falcon.
Yep. Right.
And I'm just so sad we never got to see it. It's such a bummer. But
I think we still will see it, but it will not be it won't be a reunion like scene. But I'm not kind of banking on it, because I don't want to be disappointed, but I won't be surprised if it shows up.
That'd be I'd be thrilled. I'd be thrilled if they found a way to, flashback or whatever. If they found a way to do that, I'd be really, really happy.
Yeah.
It would make my little nerd heart sing.
Yeah, mine too. Because I think we could talk about all day about what we want to see from the original trilogy in the new one, but really, that's the thing to see.
That's the thing. That's the thing that I think most people want to see more than anything is the three of them together. And the most appropriate place to me seems to be the Falcon, with Chewie there and Lando there. Hopefully, would be the ideal. But even just three of them together anywhere would make me happy. Honestly,
I agree. Yeah, I agree. And I mean, Colin Trevorrow just did a big series of interviews. I don't know if you saw any of these where they were asking him like, "Oh, who came up with the Emperor coming back?" and things like that. And they said JJ came up with it. It was JJ's idea. They were still having a really hard time cracking the story to Rise of Skywalker, and JJ came in, and it was like kind of in their transitionary period. They're producing. He was producing, obviously, and he said
when Colin was still supposed to be directing.
Yeah, exactly. So this is a long time ago,
wow.
and he said, "What about bringing back the Emperor?" And that literally connected the story together. That was the thing that made it all work. And so Colin Trevorrow's getting a story by credit.
Oh, cool.
On this movie. And he said a lot of it is not me anymore, but there are definitely, I know, elements that were still me, and I appreciate them taking my ideas and still using them.
That's cool.
So, yeah. So from that point, at least, like, we are still going to see something fresh. Like, it's not just another JJ film. I was thinking about this in the way of, like, again, the original trilogy, where it's like George Lucas and then Irvin Kershner
for
and
Empire,
and then Richard Marquand. And Richard Marquand was basically like, "Okay, George, whatever you want to do, like, well, this is the version of that we'll do of Jedi." And I was a little bit afraid that you like this new trilogy would kind of emulate that style, where it would go too far back and not push things forward. But I from what I've been reading just in interviews, it looks like JJ is like willing to like push forward. Last Jedi, he said he's like, it reminded him to not be concerned about taking risk.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I think it's important that they're doing that. They're looking at it that way and trying to take some risks. You mentioned Lucas and his influence, especially like he basically shadow directed Return of the Jedi from what most people
exactly.
Like Richard Marquand was, I mean, he's no longer with us, so he's not around to tell the story anymore. But apparently, it sounds like Lucas was really, really, really involved, and that the director credit went to Richard Marquand, but maybe Lucas was more involved than most people realize.
He was like the overbearing producer.
Kind of, yeah. He definitely directed some scenes, like second unit stuff and things like that. He was heavily involved, much more than he was in Empire. But apparently, did you hear about Bob Iger's book? The CEO of Disney put out an autobiography.
Yes, I've been looking forward to reading it, though I have not done so yet.
There's a big chunk in it about the Star Wars purchase, the 2012 and everything that followed. And he talks a lot about the deals that they made with Lucas to buy Lucasfilm and how involved Lucas was. And apparently, George was really he gave them his treatments for episodes 7, 8, 9. Yeah. Right, we knew that. But apparently, he only did that because when he was trying to sell them Lucasfilm, he was like, I want this amount, and they ended up buying for $4 billion. And he was like, well, you gave Pixar $6 billion. And they were like, yes, but they had 6 films in development already when we bought Pixar. You have 0 films in development right now. So then he starts developing the treatments for 7, 8, 9 so that he has more to give them. Like he has something substantial to sell them more than just the intellectual property.
Wow.
And apparently he was fairly involved in he got so invested at that point. Like he wasn't planning on making those films. He was like, I'll pass it off to you. But once he started writing the treatments, something started bubbling up in his brain, and he like caught the bug again of like, I want to write Star Wars again.
Huh.
So he started writing Episode 7, like, and working with Michael Arndt on it, and eventually they brought in JJ and Lawrence Kasdan, and they basically based on the Bob Iger book, the Rebel Force Radio guys were able to pinpoint like oh, it must have been like January of 2013 is when they basically fired George off the project.
Wow.
He was already he was getting invested, and they were like, "Yeah, okay, well, we're just going to take these ideas and we're going to work on them ourselves. Thank you, we're good. We bought it, so we don't need you anymore." And apparently, he was kind of bitter about that. And that's where the whole thing of like him going on Charlie Rose and saying like, "Yeah, well, selling to Disney was kind of like selling to white slavers." Yikes. It was because he was kind of bitter about that.
Forgot he said that, but yeah.
So he was really involved, and apparently he was mad at them for the last 5 years or so, but kind of came back around, and there's more. He was apparently seen on the set of Episode 9, so there's some George Lucas influence in Episode 9, probably more than there was in Episode 7 or 8.
He directed a sequence in Solo, remember?
That's right. Yeah, was that confirmed? I remember hearing that as a rumor, but I wasn't sure. Okay.
He was the closet sequence, like with all the capes.
Oh,
I'm pretty sure that's the one that he directed.
That's fine.
Because they were actually, I think they were having a hard time like breaking down the scene. He was on set and he was like, "Oh, do this, and this," and that was that. People forget, like, you can make fun of George Lucas all you want and whatever else, but the man was like a film school prodigy.
Oh, absolutely.
Like he was, after he made American Graffiti, people were like, he could have made anything in the world he wanted. He could have been one of those guys, and he made Star Wars, and then like he didn't really like directing, so he went and like did other things, but that does not mean that he doesn't have an eye for it. He knows exactly what to do.
Absolutely. Yeah. Brilliant.
Yeah. He was on the set of The Mandalorian too, actually.
Yes, I did. I have heard that. Yeah. Which, oh man, when that season wraps, we should do an episode on that, because I am loving that show too. We should definitely talk about it. That's one of my favorite things to come from Star Wars in many, many a year.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, we can definitely talk about it when it wraps.
When it wraps.
When it wraps. So to go back to the original trilogy, I think we've seen tons of the original trilogy already, so I don't know exactly like what else we're going to see besides some like General Daldana and Wedge Antilles, maybe the original trio reuniting. I don't really know what else there is to see in the original trilogy.
I think... Do you think we'll get any flashbacks to the original trilogy era now that we're having the Emperor come back? Like, will we see what happened right after the end of Return of the Jedi?
Previous to Last Jedi, I would say no, because flashbacks historically have not been a part of Star Wars, but Last Jedi changed that. And so it's very possible that instead of just telling and not showing, it might show, not tell.
Yeah.
I'm not positive, though. I really don't mind exposition that way, especially from Star Wars, because it's like that. Star Wars is kind of clunky that way, and it's fun, and it's Maclunkey, exactly. I don't know. I really don't even think we'll see like planets again, because even like the second Death Star's crash is not on Endor. It's or on the moon of Endor. It's on either a different moon or Endor itself, or something like that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not exactly sure. Though I do think actually that the Vader's like destruction of Vader's helmet sequence actually looks like Cloud City.
I've heard a few people say that. Because it does have that sort of Imperial influence, right? With like the pill-shaped lighting and everything.
Yep.
And there is something very Cloud City about it. So I mean, that would be interesting if they went back to Bespin.
Yeah, I don't think they do. I think that it's just a Star Wars aesthetic that people, like they've adopted for the Star Wars universe being made up of hundreds of millions of creatures and characters. Like their aesthetic is fairly similar across every planet.
There's a look, right? There's a look. Especially the Imperial, the Empire has a look that it rolls out uniformly everywhere.
Yeah, that's kind of the point.
That's kind of the point, right? And that's kind of symbolic of their sort of fascism and their sort of like there's only one right answer to everything, and it's our way.
Right, which is because the prequels, like, it's so diverse because it's the New Republic, or it's just there's the regular Republic, and everyone has their own look, but fascism takes over, and then the First Order is basically like they want order across the galaxy, they want uniformity. That's the whole point.
Mm-hmm.
So for other things to start looking similar again makes sense.
Totally makes sense. Do you think that the story-wise, we will see some kind of mirroring of the end of the original trilogy? Do you think that we will see like, okay, the First Order is taken out and now like there's a new way forward, whether that's a new Republic, or do we think there's going to be like a, you know what, that didn't work last time, here's an entirely different direction we're going to go off in for the future, sort of subverting our expectations of what the future might look like?
I think it's going to end similar to Return of the Jedi, in which everyone's just like taking a picture, you know, like everyone's smiling and celebrating. Yeah. Yeah. Na, 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 na,
dude, I want Yub Nub in this movie.
Na, 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 ma, 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 na, na. I like the other song better.
No, Yub Nub is better.
Do, 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 do. Anyway, I think it'll end more like that, because for years after Return of the Jedi, we were like, oh, that's it. That's the end of the Empire. But then, then the Star Wars books were like, but actually it wasn't. It was just the end of the Emperor, but they still had like the remnants of the Empire to fight off. So I don't think we're going to be like, I don't think they'll like kill the Emperor again or something like that and be like, well, now it's time to do another Republic. You know?
Like, what do you do with an already dead Emperor?
Right, because it's only been like a year or two since the destruction of Hosnian Prime and the Republic. So I don't like the amount of rebuilding is something left. So I actually don't think it's going to be the end of the First Order. I think it's going to be the end of the Skywalker. I think they're being very particular. This is the end of the Skywalker family saga, but this is not the end of either the Resistance versus the First Order or something like that. I think that there's bigger things at play, because think of all the money that Disney's invested in, like say the new look of the sequel trilogy. I don't think you can just be like, oh, and nope, that's it. We're gonna do a completely new revamp next time.
I agree. I think that they're not done with these characters. They're not done with like this sequel era, story, this universe as they're gonna leave it. But I think they'll leave it in a place that will feel final for now.
Yes,
right. Like it's gonna feel like it's like Return of the Jedi. It's gonna feel like that's it. It's over. But there will be plenty of room for them to come in and do an episode. Well, they probably won't. They'll probably drop. My theory is they'll drop the episode numbers with this. They may do more films with these characters, but I don't think they'll use episode numbers anymore.
Do you think
I think Disney has been distancing themselves from that, even in the marketing? They're not using episode numbers literally, except for in the opening scroll of the film. That's the only place you see a number. So I think that they're going to let that go. Numbers are going to go away after this. My theory, because they feel like the numbers are confusing and hard for people to keep track.
I think it's the. I think that it's the Marvel model, where Marvel, like, there's a chronological order and a release order, but there are no episode numbers.
There's no episode numbers.
You should be able to sit down and watch the movie regardless of...
Right. You're going to be confused if you watch, Spider-Man Far From Home before you watched Endgame, but they're not going to put numbers on it until you're like, watch them in this order. Like, if you know, but if you watch it on its own,
that's right. Yeah, exactly. The internet will tell you. Don't worry. So... I don't know. Well, Frank, I think we're about out of time, but any last thing you want to say?
I have enjoyed how much original trilogy influence there has been on the sequel trilogy, and I look forward to seeing that come to like its fullest fruition in episode 9.
Same.
It's my closing statement.
Same. Okay, well, you can find us on beerwithgeeks.com, obviously, as I said at the front of the show.
We are beerwithgeeks.com.
Exactly, beerwithgeeks.com, Facebook, Gmail, and Twitter. You can rate and review us on iTunes, patreon.com/stoppableaudio to give some money over to the show. 25 cents a month goes a long way. 25 cents a month, 25 cents a week, whatever.
A week.
Both of those are good. 25 cents a week. And at Frank Ramblings and at Timothy PG-13, and I think that's the whole kit and caboodle.
I think so.
Cool. Well, Frank, this was excellent. And of course, until next time, cheers.
Cheers.